Have you ever run across a situation where you've bought a product and it comes with a bag and you find that you can't get the thing back in the bag once you've used it once? Or if you do, it's going to be very difficult to get it back in the bag. And that's the case with this quilt. And you have to roll this thing up just right, and then maybe you can get it back in the bag without ruining the bag or ripping it. Well, there's a solution in this product called a stuff sack. And it happens to actually be made by the same company. And they make 4 different sizes. And this is a small size, and then they make a medium large and extra large. The small one is 10 liters, and it's about $11, so it's not that expensive. Well, the nice thing about this stuff sack is that you don't have to roll the item up that you want to put into it. You just simply take a corner, and they call it a stuff sack after all, and you just start stuffing the bag in. It's sometimes also called a compression sack. So there we go, no fuss, no muss getting the bag in. And then the next step is to close the top. And finally there's a cover that goes over the bag. And it's a little bit hard for me to do when I'm trying to produce a video. And 2 of these snaps are permanent and 2 of them are on side release buckles. Which makes it easier to put the top on. And then all we do is compress it. And actually, if we compare the two, it's actually a smaller item to store than what the original bag was. Anybody that's an RVer sooner or later is going to need to use some paracord. And I don't care if you don't have a tent or if you have a high-end RV, you're always going to have the need for paracord at some point. You may want to put up a dining fly or a tarp or even hanging a clothesline. You're still going to need some paracord at some point. With most of the paracord that you buy, you get a hank of say 100 foot and it's all wound up. As soon as you unwind it, of course, the next thing it's all tangled up. Well, here's a solution to keep your paracord from being tangled. And these aren't that expensive. I got 2 of them for around $11. And here's one that I've already put paracord on. And it does have a keeper for the paracord and keep the paracord from unwrangling. And this is 100 feet. And another nice thing I like about it is there's a cutter on this side. So if you need just a small piece of paracord, say for tent stake or something, you just simply unwrap paracord and now you cut it. Of course, the end will ravel, and while the best thing to do is to burn the end so that it does not ravel anymore, at least temporarily, you can just put a knot in the end. So now you've got a little piece of paracord that you can use for whatever task you need, and especially if you tie a knot in both ends. You know, say you're going to throw this away at the end of the camping trip, and you're just going to use it for a stake or something to extend a tarp. So again, this is just a little convenient tool that you can put in your bag of tricks. We also have this item called Thread Zap 2. It's basically just a hot knife that you can use to tie off the end of the paracord that we just cut. And it's battery operated, takes 1 AA cell, so I don't know how long this is going to last. And there is a caution not to open this barrel from this end, which you can do. And just the battery goes in the far end. And here's a piece of paracord that we cut. The switch is not very positive, but we'll see how this works. And it will slice through. And it does take a little finessing. Here we go. So now it will not ravel. And I bought this particular one because you can replace the tip. So I don't know if you can get tips that are thicker or not. However, it does work the way it is. I've had this Jackery 500 power center for about 6 months now. And I kind of have to store it in the garage when I'm not using it. And that's about the only place I really have for it. I paid $500 for this thing, and it just sits in a dusty environment in the garage, and Although this is pretty impervious to dust, at minimum it kind of makes it look ugly, and it's kind of disappointing that I let it get into that shape. Well, I was able to find from Jackery a carry case for the Jackery 500. And this is kind of unusual because when you open it up, it almost looks like a lunch bag. It's got that same kind of aluminum insulating look to it. And it wasn't all that expensive, maybe around $35. But the Jackery 500 fits into it perfectly. And I suppose you could even use it as a lunch bag in a real emergency. Although I wouldn't want to let the inside get wet while you're using it as a lunch bag. Then put the Jackery in when it's a little bit damp. And then the only real issue is they didn't make a pouch for the accessory bag. And of course, this accessory bag does include the charging cables and things. But I found if you can kind of shove it under the handle a little bit, then it'll fit. And it does have the waterproof style zippers. And then of course, you just have a little Velcro keeper for the carry handle. And then you also have a shoulder strap. If you're going to spend $500 on something, a couple extra bucks, to protect it is probably a good investment. I was in my camping store the other day and I ran across this cute little bag of ground stakes. And I've seen this kind of thing before, and I never really took much stock in them because all they are basically lag bolts. And I always kind of figured, that's kind of silly. What the heck, I might as well try it now that I bought it. And this particular one is made by Outback Element. Comes with 15 of these and a driver bit. We have some little rocks embedded in this dirt, so let's see how this works. And so in reality, I'm not sure what all the hype is about this. I suppose you would figure that in rocky soil, you need something a little more robust because you may have a hard time pounding in a regular stake, and I suppose you still might. And if we compare that to just a standard stake that I have, well, actually, it holds it better. But the main thing is that it's a lot easier to go in than pound in the nails. So I suppose they do have an advantage, but you have to think that the threads on this are just not aggressive enough.